Today, I believe that I'm being called to lead by helping to clear the field in this race so that a positive, conservative message can rise to the top of the field. With this in mind, I will suspend my campaign immediately.
The rest of the GOP presidential hopeful field would like to thank Scott Walker for taking his 0% of potential voters and what little money was floating around off the table and making it available for everybody else. But as the feeding frenzy begins, there's a much larger Republican issue here with one less possibility. Time to sharpen the verbal knives to see if collectively they can slice and dice on Mr. Trump. Let's begin there with the political shark, or the political animal, if you will. Welcome back the former head of FEMA, who now owns the afternoon drive time airwaves along the Rocky Mountain Front Range at 630 KHOW in Denver, Colorado, Michael Brown, joined by the National Review Institute Fellow in Political Journalism, meaning you can read his musings and such at nationalreview.com, Ian Tuttle. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for joining us. Mike, I'm going to go ahead and begin with you on this one. Scott Walker's out, so who wins with Scott Walker out? Anybody really, seeing as he wasn't getting a whole lot of votes in the first place?
I think that's the key, Ed. He wasn't getting a whole lot of votes in the first place. But I think the winner are all of the other candidates, because there's a lesson here. They need to learn and remember that this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We're still almost five months away from the Iowa caucus. And I think Scott Walker's mistake was he treated it like he was running this sprint. And so he spent all of his money, all of his energy trying to focus on Iowa, which I know is important to everybody. But this is a long-term game. And if you look at Cruz, you look at Rubio, you look at Jeb, some of the others, they've still got a lot of money left. They've still got a lot of staff left. They're in it for the long haul, and I think that's the lesson for the rest of them.
So, Ian, then let's get to it when it comes down to what Scott Walker said, basically intimating, gentlemen and lady, it's time that we teamed up here and we went after Donald Trump. Okay, it's a nice sentiment here, but will anybody else on that Republican POTUS field really buy into that?
Well, you certainly saw people sharpen their knives toward Trump during the debate the other night, and I think that for most of them, they're not terribly worried that Trump is actually going to carry votes, 5 months plus from now. They think that there's a lot of potential there for self-destruction. So I think you're going to see a lot of them focusing on message, taking their jabs when they can. But the question is, are donors and voters going to be rallying around sort of an anti-Trump candidate? That'll be the more interesting question.
Now, in your opinion, Ian, the last couple of days here, what Donald Trump has said, certainly he continues to make news. He continues to throw out insults. We've seen his poll numbers drop. Do you think this is the beginning of a permanent slide?
I think that we might not have reached quite peak Trump, but I think it's quite possible. Look, his debate performance was not particularly impressive. He seemed petty. He seemed small. He was absent for almost the entirety of the genuine policy debate portions of the evening. So I think a lot of people saw through the veneer. Also, the act gets tired, and the closer we get to the actual voting, more people are going to be looking at policy. And as the field narrows, policy will become more important, at least. I'm going to cross my fingers that that's true.
All right. Now, Michael, there's a good point, because if they're smart, the others standing up there wanting to be president, on the Republican side, do they not just at this point ignore Donald Trump, walk away from it all, stop, let him go ahead, sit in his own stew and deal with themselves, something none of them have quite frankly yet learned how to do?
Well, except for Ted Cruz. I think Ted Cruz has learned that, because Ted hasn't really thrown any jabs at Trump. But I think Ian's right, and I love that phrase, peak Trump. I kind of think we might have met peak Trump during that last debate, because Ian is exactly right. When we finally got to substantive issues, suddenly Donald Trump was deadly silent. So the key, I think, for the other candidates is this. We want to hear substance. We want to hear about your policy. And I think if they focus on that, and then when it's appropriate to take a jab at the Trump, then I think that person, whoever that is, will start to rise to the top.
Michael, somebody else here, Ben Carson and his comments about Muslim presidency. Did he make a fatal mistake?
Look, I'm really conflicted with this. I think what he said is probably correct in this sense. There is a fundamental conflict between the concept of Islam as a ruling system and our constitutional system. So I think what he said is probably correct, but it's politically incorrect to say it. But at some point we have to face it. We're not a theocracy. Islam represents a theocracy. And how do we deconflict that, or can you even deconflict that?
But we should point out, too, that the Constitution does allow for a Muslim to become president. Anybody who says it's against the Constitution is wrong. You'll agree with that, right?
Right. That's right. And that's like asking, John Kennedy, is he going to take his instructions from the Pope or not? Well, we know that's not the case. So the case here is, someone who is a Muslim, are you going to try to create a theocracy, or are you going to abide by the Constitution?
Ian, I'm going to switch gears here for you. About 45 seconds I have left. Can we all just stop the foolishness here on the Democratic side of things? Hillary Clinton's got the money. Yeah, she's taking a dip here and there. Yes, there's Joe Biden. Yes, there's Bernie Sanders. Stop the foolishness here, Ian. She's going to be the Democratic candidate. She's going to be the nominee. Yes, no, or am I just off the track here?
Well, I mean, the smart money certainly says that, but the interesting thing here is there was a story in Politico, I think it was the other day, of a Politico reporter who happened to be on with a Clinton campaign donor phone call where the campaign was desperately trying to reassure some of her donors that, they didn't need to worry about Benghazi, they didn't need to worry about the email scandal.
It's all the take a breath issue that we're into right now, really.
Exactly, but even...
We'll dig into that into another time. We're all out of time right now, unfortunately. Sorry about that. Ian Tuttle, Michael Brown, thanks so much for joining us, gentlemen. The Political Animal closes for the day. And don't forget, we're offering you Carly Fiorina's book free of charge. Go to newsmax.com/Carly. Get your free copy. We'll continue.